Fabulous. Okay, everyone, we are going to start on time. There will be other people that will be joining us. So welcome to them when they come. And I am recording this session so that you will be able to watch this later. Watch it back later. You should have all received in your emails from me an overview of the digital ecosystem, which we are about to go through. That's just for your own benefit, and I will be sending through a copy of the slides as well with the recording. So let's kick off. Today, we are going to be going through demystifying digital marketing, which is a lot to do in an hour, but I'm going to do my best. It is designed to be a starting point today for you to think about where you are and where you want to go. So, but first of all, the introduction. So who am I? And you are all very welcome here today. My name is Leanne O'Sullivan. I like to call myself a digital Sherpa. I'm the founder and digital strategist here at Adventure Digital. But I have actually been working in the digital space for probably almost as long as it's existed. My husband and I had an agency prior to us opening a craft brewery. And subsequent to that, I have established my own agency because this is what I actually love to do. I love to work with customers, clients, and in the digital space. And I also especially love to train them and educate them in how to use digital tools to grow their business. So I'm also the founder and the digital advocate over at Summit School with Leanne, or Digital Sherpa, as I like to call myself. And Summit School with Leanne is my training arm of my business, and I have a variety of courses over inside there, which I'll be talking about later on in this session. So what are we going to cover in this webinar today? Okay, so as I said, it is jam-packed with information today. I will do my best to get through it in an hour, and there will be some time, hopefully, at the end for you to ask questions. Well, today what we're going to cover is we're going to be going through what is the digital ecosystem. We're going to have a look at and get you to start thinking about what are your digital elements. I'm going to look at 4 key essentials that any business should have. And then I'm also going to go through what big business does that small businesses like yours can also do. And I'm going to give you 4 ninja tips, or 4 key things that I really think any small business should have in their marketing arsenal, especially in the online space. So what is the digital ecosystem? Well, the digital ecosystem, it's all the digital elements that your business uses, creates, has or owns that support your business goals and objectives. So the 4 areas that we work in, and this is the framework that I work with whenever I'm working with a client, is we work across 4 key areas. We work across web, we work across social, we work across content, and we work across search. You must have something from all of these 4 areas to create an effective digital strategy. It is not just social media. And people often make the mistake in thinking that digital marketing and understanding what a digital strategy means just having a fancy Instagram account. That's not it. So let's dive in and have a look at what some of these areas are. So if you've downloaded your guide, you would have seen I've sent you this document. And you can see here that this is what we're talking about with the digital ecosystem. So digital strategy sits at the heart, and we have the 4 areas around it. We have web, social, content, and search. Okay, so they are the 4 planks. You'll also see in purple little areas that I like to pull together and talk about as part of personal branding. So we have visual branding elements, personal brand essence, personal brand messaging, and personal brand recognition. I'm not talking about personal branding today, but they're just there as little like triggers or reminders, if you like, to think about those later. So that's at a top level. And then, yes, then you can see there's all of these potential things that you can do. Now, I don't want you to be thinking, getting too overwhelmed, thinking, oh my God, there's so much. There is, yes, a lot. But what I'm going to go through in this session is I'm just going to highlight some key things for you. And I'm going to also point out something that I think is really important that can help level up your business and really help you leverage some of these tools to increase your digital footprint, your visibility, ultimately to drive more traffic, to get more leads, and to get what we really care about, which is more sales. Okay, so let's have a look at our first little session. Before before we do that though, do you have gaps? Now you can obviously see from that big busy document, I'm imagining that you probably have lots of gaps. And I want you to know that you're not alone in that scenario. Many small businesses that I work with have gaps in these foundational elements, and they prevent them from having the online success that they want and that they deserve and that they can have. You may have some parts of the puzzle, but you may not have all of it. I often use the analogy that sometimes people think, well, I've got a website and I'm using a social channel. Why isn't it working for me? And it's a bit like sitting on a four-legged chair that only has two legs, okay? But the reason sometimes we're trying to sit on that four-legged chair that only has the two legs is that we often are doing what we think we need to do without understanding the full picture. We don't really know what's out there. What are all the other elements that we should be considering for our business, let alone knowing how to actually implement them? So, how are we going to fill in some of those gaps? You don't need to do all the things. I really want to stress this a lot to you, and I'll stress it at every single time. You don't need to do everything. But there are key items that the big players use that I'm going to encourage you to use. So let's look at these web stuff first. Okay. There's so much more to the concept of web than just a website. And yet so many businesses only focus on that at the start of their online journey, and then they forget about it. You know, I know over the years we've built thousands of websites, literally thousands of websites. And I don't know how many people say to us, can you just make my logo bigger? And I don't know how many times I have to tell them. I can guarantee you that making your logo bigger is not going to generate one more eyeball on your site, one more lead, one more sale. It just doesn't work like that. Otherwise, we'd all have websites that would just be a great big logo, and we don't. So my challenge to you is, my question here is, how many of you have spent money on a website and then barely looked at it after the event? A lot of people do that. You are not alone if that's you. You are also not alone if you have website shame. You truly are not alone. It is very, very common in our space, but there's so many things that you can do that you have control of. So let's have a look at things that are key to help you leverage your website better and understand what do the big guys do that you can do. So here we go. Here's some details of web. You can see on here that I've got, mobile first, email marketing, e-commerce. You might have a bespoke solution. You might be plugging in a calendar. You might be plugging in events. You could be plugging in anything. You might have a membership area. You should have analytics. There's a whole range of things inside here. Have a look at this document that you've downloaded and audit to see, does my website have these things? If you don't know what the things are, it's likely that you don't have them. You may have the functionality, but you may not have turned it on. So I want you to highlight what you do have so you can see what are my gaps. Now, these are the big three that we recommend. The first one is you've really got to have a mobile first website. Now, you probably have heard things like responsive websites, where websites will resize themselves depending on the device you're looking at. So when you're on a desktop, a website might look a certain way. It might shuffle and look differently when you're looking at it on your iPad. It will then shuffle and look differently on a mobile phone. It will may look different on a great big screen in an office. So that's what responsive means. It kind of like shuffles concertinas in and out depending on the device. But what's most important in today's environment is that it's got to work well on mobile. Now, Google will punish you if your site doesn't work well on mobile. What does that mean? It means that when you've got your website on your phone, look at it. Can you navigate it yourself? Can you, and I like to use this comment all the time, can you with your big fat fingers move through the site on the nav? Can you fill in the forms easily? Can you buy easily? Is it easy for people to use it on their phone? Because if it's not, Google knows that too, and they will punish you by pushing you further down in the rankings. Okay, so it does impact on how you are discoverable online. So just make sure, get out your phones and have a look at your website on a phone. Make sure it's okay. The next thing that I think is really important amongst all those elements across any business is you've got to have email marketing. All right, it's absolutely essential that you're constantly building your list, because You have control over that information. You can send emails to people, you can nurture them, you can give them whatever they need to know, because that comes with you. And it's actually the most personal form of marketing other than face-to-face meetings, because it lands directly in someone's inbox. It's not like social media where we have to focus on the vagaries of, the algorithm and what Mark Zuckerberg might think. And, oh gosh, everyone's moving to TikTok and now I have to do silly dances. It's all manner of things. Your email list is yours. You've got it. It goes with you wherever you go. So that's a really important thing that you should have on your website. And you really should have a blog. A blog helps you rank better because it lets you talk about the things your business does in a way that answers people's questions. And I'm going to come back to that when we talk about search. That's a really important thing. That's why blogging is so important. And I have to challenge you, if you don't have one, is why aren't you sharing your expertise? How can I come to know what your business does if all you have is, half a dozen pages on your website, a couple of service offerings that you have? How does that help differentiate you in your market? A blog and sharing your expertise and talking in more depth about the things that you do, which is what you do in a blog, is how you do that. You've got to be sharing more of what you know. And you don't always have to do it on your own unless you're a solopreneur. You can share the load around in your business. You can get other people to talk about it. You can even outsource and get someone to help you write the content. But you should have a blog and you should be blogging regularly. If you're going to ask me how often, monthly is fine, fortnightly is better. But we have to be realistic about how busy we are and how many hands we've got in our team to create this. But you 100% should be creating fresh content on a regular basis, okay? And think longer form. 500 words is not enough to rank well inside Google. You need to think, if it's going to be quality, if it's going to lead people to a purpose, if it's going to lead people to a call to action, try and get to around 1,000 words. 800 is really the minimum we recommend to people. That's what we aim to do. When we write for our clients, we always hit 800 and then we like to get into around the 1,200 territory. Okay, so that's what you should be thinking about. Now, what's the ninja tip? What are the big guys doing that you should also be doing? Well, one of the things in that web ecosystem facet is having a landing page. Do you have one? And what are they? So a landing page is the page you send people to as part of a campaign to do something. It could be the page they go to when there's a call to action on your website. It might be your quote page. It could be get on my newsletter page. It could be try this new thing. It could be download our white paper. It could be book an appointment. Whatever it is, there's an actionable thing on there where the only thing you want people to do is whatever it is. Sign up, fill in a form, take an action, okay? This is the ninja tip that's really important. So let's have a look at some examples of landing pages. And I want you to realize a landing page, in the definition of what a landing page truly is, to derive some kind of conversion action or conversation, it's not your homepage. It's not your contact us page, okay? It is a different page within your website. And you might send people there from an email campaign, from an ad that you might have on Google Ads, from Facebook ads. It's a whole variety of things, but you want to send people there to do something. So what do we need to know about them? They're very similar to the rest of your website, but they're not going to have distractions on them. Often landing pages that you might find yourself on as a result of clicking through to an ad, whether it might be on Google Ads or whether it could be inside Facebook or Instagram, is that they're not going to have competing distractions on that page. I don't want you to click away and look at other parts of my website. I want you to do this thing. So they may not have a menu. They don't have any other links that are anything else other than do this thing. And as I've said, we've sent people there, we've emailed them, we've had an ad, there's a blog post, whatever they've done, we've deliberately funneled people, if you like, to this page to get them to take action. And this is how you can help build your email list. This is how you get people to book your appointment or the discovery call or to trial that product or to get your freebie thing that you're offering. You send them to that page, okay? as part of a campaign, and you've got a page that's really inviting and they want to take action. So what I'm going to talk about here is, I've been using this example for a long time, but I still love it. And I just updated the images today. We're all in business and we're probably all very familiar with Xero, or, you know, if you're using QuickBooks or MYOB. But one of the things that I want you to realize, because it helps you understand about landing pages as distinct from pages on your website. This is the main Xero landing page in Australia. So their main page looks like this. They've got a normal looking website. It's got a navigation across the top, a login area. Underneath this big image, they've got the features and they've got other options, but this is their main homepage. This is not a landing page. This is their landing page. This is their landing page from an ad. If you type in accounting packages and you see the Xero Google ad and you click it, this is what you see. If you were to see this through Facebook, it would come here. This is what you'd see. So the difference between the two pages is that, first of all, there's no nav across the top. I don't want you clicking into Xero Partners or, you know, accounting for various industries. What I want is I want you to try this software. So we don't have buttons doing anything else. There is the login button up the top. That assumes that you're already a client. But if you aren't a client, try Xero for free. Try Xero for free. All-in-one accounting software. It has no menu. It has clear calls to action. It focuses on pain point messages for clients. Automate your admin. Everything in one place. Real-time view of cash flow. Focuses on those client outcomes. This is a landing page. And most businesses really should have at least one. This is what the big guys are doing. This is likely to be what your business isn't doing and can do. How? How do you create these magical landing pages? Well, most software platforms that you use to build your website will allow you to do this, or you can get your web developer to help you create one. You can see that's there. That's one of my little landing pages that I have at my Liano website, which is helping you understand your brand personality. Has no nav, it's got my logo. It's literally asking a question. What's your brand personality? Help me find mine. Okay, so that's a landing page. If you've got email marketing tools, you are likely to have landing page functionality already in them. MailChimp and MailerLite, which is one that we love. If you don't like MailChimp, you'd like something similar, and in my opinion, better, give MailerLite a try. You can also have them in marketing automation tools, Ontraport, ActiveCampaign, you know, Campaign Monitor. They all have landing page tools. You can use dedicated programs like lead pages, or your developer can help make a template that you then just use all the time. You know, you may even find if your website is Squarespace, there could be landing page templates in there. If it's WordPress, your theme might have one. You know, there's all sorts of options for you once you know what to look for. You can get plugins inside WordPress that allow you to build out landing pages. That's what you're trying to do. You want to have a page that you can send people to get them to take action. We want to make it easy for people to do things at our website. We don't want to make it hard for them. We don't want to make assumptions. We want to funnel people down a path, because online we're a bit silly. We don't really see things. Okay, so let's dive into one that possibly more of you are more familiar with, because this is often the thing that people think this is all digital marketing is. And yes, it's an important part of digital marketing, but it only works when we have our other elements in place. So let's just have a bit of a look at social media. I think I've just gone. Oh no, here we go. So the first thing that we need to realize about successful social media is that it does not need to be live or immediate. It just doesn't. Big business does not post up ad hoc spontaneous images. They may look like they are, but they're not. And you can normally see when they've deviated outside their plan, things have gone pear-shaped. So if something's gone pear-shaped online from a big corporate player, you can guarantee that somebody somewhere down the line didn't approve the process, okay? So everything they're doing is planning. And that's often, you have a look next time you see a scandal, and obviously it's going to be like the work experience person maybe have done it. But first of all, I just want to show you the full gamut, if you like, of potential social channels. So here we go. Here's our social element, if you want. You can see it's got the big players, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, stories. But what I've also done on here is I've had some other players in the social space, as well as thinking about the ecosystem across these channels. So stories have become so much more important for Facebook and Instagram. That's where eyeballs have been. The algorithm is throttling the feeds. We're really not seeing much in our feeds. Most people are hanging around in stories. LinkedIn even experimented with stories for a while. Bit of a flop. They don't do that anymore. But there's things that are, Messenger is huge. Facebook groups are still really powerful. There's also this thing snapping around in audio spaces like Twitter spaces. Clubhouse was huge at the start of the pandemic. It's now kind of died off, but there's this thing around talking in private groups. There's still this focus on things being private, on not being so out in the open, which is why stories and direct messaging is really popular. People are less reticent to post publicly. Particularly with all the trolls and stupid people out there in the world, but social is still where it's at. It's just that we're doing it in a lot more private spaces. So that's just something to think about, what is going on in your socials. Now, one of the things that I think is really important for small business owners to understand is that, like everything you do in your business, it's actually not about you. You're selling not to yourself, you're selling to customers. You need to understand their needs, where they play, what they care about. Otherwise, your product won't sell. One of the things I see though is that we often, as owners, we don't put our energy into the social channels that our customers play in, because we're not necessarily comfortable there. So we don't participate. And we really need to be mindful of, where are my end customers? What is the platform that they're in? And that's why I don't think it's right to say only focus on one platform and do it well. I think you need to focus energy on the platforms that your customers are in and get those better. And obviously, if you have one that you can do better than others, get really good at that and share that across the other channels. But you can't just think one channel will do it. It's very disconnected in the social space. So you've got to think, where are my customers? We also need to be mindful of the way people communicate inside the channels that we're choosing to be in, because we know that's where our customers are. The way you speak on LinkedIn is going to be slightly different to the way you might speak in a TikTok video, in the way you might speak in an Instagram reel, in the way you might share a Facebook story. You just have to be mindful of where you're playing, because some of the behavior inside those channels is slightly different. Even though you might be talking to the same customer base, the way you speak to them could be different. Okay. So this is a really important point to think about, where your customers are and be where they are. And don't be thinking, I'm only going to do one channel. Think about your customers. If your customers are in the main only in one channel, well, maybe that's where you can only focus. But if your customers are in multiple channels, and these days it's so much more fragmented and niched into various areas, I don't think we can just focus on just one place. Because what we're trying to do here is start conversations. We need to be engaging with people. And it's this statement about know, like, trust. I know you've heard this a lot of times, but it's worth mentioning because it's just true. People need to know what we do. People need to like how we do it, what we're doing, and then they're going to start to trust us. So what you're trying to do in social media is build rapport, build awareness, build rapport, build up trust. Have people refer you. Like it's kind of occurring at the top of the funnel and then also at the bottom of the funnel. Up here, people becoming aware of you, and then they move down the funnel, they become customers, and then they advocate for you. And a lot of that advocation occurs on social media, where they will refer you. They'll complete refers in Google and in Facebook, but they'll talk about you in groups. If you're not in those places engaging, you won't see it, you won't realize, you won't be on top of it. Okay, so you've just got to be thinking that social media is where you're going to be building community and talking and trying to encourage conversations. It's not a place for the hard sell. Okay, so if all you're doing is talking about your products only, and you're not providing educational pieces, inspirational pieces, or just conversation starters, you're never going to get the eyes in front of people when you really want them to take action. Okay, so how do we get them to engage? One of the things that I think is really important is to think about, especially if you're a service-based business, that, you know, or any part of your industry, is that think of yourself as a thought leader. And I put little quotation marks around that because sometimes people can just be a bit too over the top here. But if you can take a stand or have an opinion on something, the algorithm, you know, that might stir up a few people, the algorithm's going to favor that. Okay, it's going to put that in front of more people because it thinks, you know, especially if it's something topical. You know, if let's just say, you know, we're in summer and there's a new report that's come out in relation to skin cancer, and you are a skin cancer specialist. You might, you know, have a piece that you wrote a while ago. You might reshare that because you're talking in social media about something that you're an expert on, and because it's topical. You know, the report was released, it's summer, you know, you've seen a lot of people come through that are neglecting whatever. You might talk about something there. So just be mindful, have your ear to the ground of what's going on in your world, because what you want to be doing is feeding into that algorithm. Like, algorithms can be a force for good. You know, we don't have to have our feeds full of rubbish. We can, you know, feed into the good side, but you also need to understand with the algorithm what's it's favoring. So right now, you know, it had been stories is where a lot of eyeballs are, but right now, Facebook, the Facebook ecosystem is going right into Reels, which are obviously an Instagram and have now been moved over into Facebook. Why is that? Because TikTok's coming for their market. You know, TikTok's coming for their market. TikTok's coming for the video space in YouTube. You know, last year it was the most highly trafficked website in the world. You might think that's crazy for a platform if you've never come across it of crazy dancing, but it actually isn't, you know, crazy dancing or things like that. Yes, that occurs, but it's so much more. But you need to be ear to the ground about where are people moving. But what is the ninja tip for social media? Well, here it is. I spoke at the beginning of this section on social media about how big business is not posting ad hoc stuff. And I know for a lot of us, we just might think, oh, I haven't posted anything today, I'm going to post something. So you then post something and then you wonder why it didn't work. And it's because we've just gone bang, put it up ad hoc without much thought. The best thing to do to get better social media is to batch your social media post creation. Either creating a whole bunch of images in a job lot, you know, sitting down Friday night, glass of wine, whatever, and getting creative, like sitting in it for a while to allow the juices to flow and create those images, you know, creating a bunch of posts to share. But then you want to schedule them for timed release, okay? Your time each day on social media is better spent on engaging with your community, not, oh God, I've got to post something, and then trying to think of something which is not in alignment either with your plans, your values, or your messaging. That's where things go awry, where we just post ad hoc. And unless you're really across your subject matter, unless you're really across what you're doing and are very comfortable with social media, you are going to get this wrong. So the best bet is to batch stuff. You know, create all the images, your product shots, your quotes, your behind the scenes, everything. You want to get the creative juices flowing. You want to get in the zone. You want to get into a state of flow. You will be far more creative, far more efficient, far more effective. You can do, you know, a month's worth of posts in a session, and then you just schedule it. And when you do that, you're going to be in alignment with what your messaging might be. You know, you might be saying, like for us, we're going to do a series of posts around search engine optimization. And we might have created a couple of blog posts, and we're going to have some quotes, and we're going to have some funny things, and we're going to talk about an example of our client, and we're going to create all these posts all around that one theme, which means that when we sit down and do it for ourselves, or when we sit down and we do things for clients, we've already got it in advance. We schedule it all. So then the job of engaging with our community is much, much easier. And we have a much more cohesive feed. We don't forget things. We have opportunities to fix spelling and get things all sorts of right and links working properly because we've taken the time to plan ahead. So the planning ahead is easy. You know, one of the things that I think if you haven't used is, you know, Canva Pro, because it now lets you create things and schedule direct to all your channels inside Canva Pro. So that's a fantastic tool across multiple channels. But you can also use these other ones like Facebook Creator Suite. If you're just using Facebook and Instagram, the tool that we use is Metricool that lets us schedule across everything. You may have heard of Hootsuite, SmarterQueue, Recur Post, they're old ones. Later, if you're a big Instagram user, Later now works across several platforms. So Later could be an option for you as well. So that's what you're looking to do. But I haven't put it in this presentation, but I will amend the notes after this to put in Canva Pro, because you can create your most likely going to be creating posts inside Canva, where you can now schedule them from Canva as well if you've got a pro account, which is like amazing. But if you don't schedule them, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have this. You're going to have the empty cafe on Route 66 and no one's going to be visiting you. We have to get ahead of the communication process. We have to get ahead of the curve, because if we want to communicate and encourage conversations, we can't be spending our time day to day creating something fresh. We need to sit down and plan our content in advance. To be honest, when we plan content for clients, we're using an Excel spreadsheet. That's how fancy that is. And then we send that to clients to approval. And then we schedule it using Metricool. Okay, so obviously we're creating stuff, the imagery is in Canva, but you don't necessarily need to do anything too super fancy. We are using an Excel spreadsheet, and that is perfectly acceptable to use to get started with what you're going to do. Okay, so we've spoken about two key elements. Like web is like the foundations of your house, if you like. Social media, I like to think about it as one of those amplification tools. Now, content, we do an exercise for people who do my training program where we start with thinking about the kinds of things that our customers need to hear from us. So content, whilst I'm talking about it here third, is actually really critical to the whole process of your digital strategy. So what do we have in these content elements? Because this really is the fuel of your lead generation. And if you don't have effective content, then your website's not going to fly because you've got nothing in it that works. Your social media, you have nothing to share because you haven't thought about this next item. And for search, you can't rank for stuff you haven't created. So what's in this really critical section? Content marketing is the fuel of your business lead generation engine. Without it, you are just shouting on a street corner to randoms, and people are all going to look at you like you're weird. So before you add further to this online noise, I want you to think on this. Content marketing refers to a strategic answer to a customer's question. So again, our clients should be at the heart of everything that we're putting out online. What do they want to read? What do they need to know that helps them make a decision? So there are a variety of tools and techniques and tactics that we can use in this space. You don't have to use them all, but you should always have your customer at the heart of what you're doing, because you're providing value and helping them become aware of you, to like you, know you, and then boom, trust you to take the next step. So here we go. Audit this and have a look at your website and see, do I have how many of these things? So you'll notice in the first section that we're at the web part, I talked about having email marketing. Well, inside here, I'm talking about, well, actually, what things have you got planned for your email marketing? Are you actually sending campaigns out? Do you have a little welcome sequence for people? What are you actually doing here? It's such a precious resource and asset for you, your list. Are you using it? And then we have all these other things that are part of perhaps the landing page that I spoke about at the beginning. If we want people to get on our list saying, hey, sign up to my, the 50 millionth newsletter that you can have, is it going to work? You need what's a lead magnet that I can give you so that you will get on my list. If you're a service-based business, it could be a checklist. It could be something like a webinar, which is what you guys are all in. It might be a discount code. It could be an insight into something. That's why having the blog and talking about things that matter to your customer base is useful. So have a look on here and see, well, what am I actually using right now? What am I actually doing in this area? Have I even thought about it in this kind of a way? Because this is so important, because it feeds into so many other parts of that attraction process and conversion process that you're wanting to have at your website. Okay, so, and I love down the bottom when I talk about the content facet, it's how to tell our story and make a connection. Okay, that's what we're trying to do. And if you do some of this thinking, it's going to mean that what you're trying to do in social media will work so much better. So everything, I've mentioned this term before in this presentation, everything that we're trying to do here is get people from the top of the funnel, the awareness part, consideration, the client research part, and we want to get them to actually do something with us. So we want to go from cold to warm to face, or from cold to warm to hot, where they buy something if it's all happening online. So this kind of transactional thing is really important for you to consider, that people, you know, depending on your business model and depending on the industry that you're in, some people have a really wide funnel, you know, the awareness thing is really broad, and then it takes a long time, and it's deep, a long time for them to get down to the bottom. Whereas some businesses, you know, the process from awareness to purchase, the path to purchase, it's really fast. You know, if we're selling something that costs $25, well, from awareness to buy is likely to be really quick. If you're in a different kind of industry, the process of getting from awareness to booking an appointment can be longer. We just need to be, again, mindful of what's the process that our customers go through. Okay, so I want you to be thinking like that in terms of the content that you create. And in my training program, I go through what content do we need at awareness? What content do we need in the middle of the funnel? And how do we get people to take action down the bottom? What is the content that we need at each of the stages? One of the things that I think is really useful for any small business to do is to think about marketing automation. So if you use MailChimp or MailerLite or ActiveCampaign or Entreport or any number of email marketing tools, one of the things that I always look for when I start to work with a client and what we create for clients is what happens once you've filled in a form? What do you immediately get back? Because often when we fill in forms at websites, we are really interested in that business. We're curious. We want to know more. We're like super engaged at that point. So I always like to make it a really sticky process and a really seamless process. A sticky process, so we want to build some connections with them from that first step, and a seamless process because I don't like having to click a million things to then get the good stuff. You know, I'm not necessarily a big fan of 50,000 million opt-in options like MailChimp makes you have. I actually prefer that if people sign up, then they get a welcome email from me. And then they might get a follow-up email from me. So if I've got a little tool thing that could be, you know, 10 ways to grow your hair faster. So I'm a bald bloke and I want to have 10 ways to have more hair. I get the little download. I might then follow it up, you know, 2 days later after they've got the download to say, hey, here's another little ninja tip. If you hang upside down and massage your head, it causes the hair follicles to grow more. I mean, you know, whatever. But we want to make a sticky process. So we want to be welcoming people to our list, not just, hey, get on the list and then they get nothing. You know, we want to give people the opportunity perhaps to try this extra thing. So, hey, here's, you know, thanks for signing up to our newsletter. You're going to get a gift on your birthday. Or when someone buys a thing from you, maybe you've got an email that's triggered if they spend over $200 to say, thank you so much for spending $200. And here's a little gift card of $20 to put to your next purchase or something. You know, there's a bunch of things that businesses can think about. What's that next step I can take when someone gets on my list? You know, you want to have less people having to add them to things and more automation, and all good email marketing systems will do that. You just have to think about what's the little offer or email or relationship building thing that you want to do. But the ninja thing that big business does, and this is something that I don't see enough small business doing, is none of us in small business have heaps and heaps of time. You know, the idea often of, oh, what, really? I've got to create content all the time. You're telling me I have to blog every month. I don't have time for that. But the thing is that A, you likely already have resources in your business that you're not aware of that you can turn into this kind of content. And B, you don't always have to create new stuff. You know, there's I think it's a Regurgitator song, I like your old stuff better than your new stuff. I love that. I tell people that all the time in content. When you're creating a blog post and you put it up on your website and then you put it in your newsletter and you share it on socials, you don't just do it once. Why don't you come and revisit it in 3 or 4 months' time and share it again and have a slightly different information tile in social media? Why don't you reshare it in a newsletter roundup again? Once it's good content that you've either paid someone to help you with, or you've taken time out of your busy work life to create, and no doubt you're very proud of, and it works really well, is don't just have it on your website and never think to share it again. This is what happens with good content. It lives on and on and on, but we want to give it a bit of a bump, because if you only send it out to your list today, well, people that have joined your list after that time will never see it. So you might want to send it out in 3 or 4 months' time. People that followed you on social media today aren't the extra people that are now following you in 3 or 4 months' time. Share it again. This is what the big guys do. They are often recycling content. They might, put it on an audit list to go back and revisit pieces of content to see, can I update it for this year? And then they update it and then they send it out to say, hey, new and improved. And it may not even be new and improved. It could just be old and recycled, but they are still sharing it out there because new people are on your list, new people are on your social channels. And if you're making little edits to it, that's going to give it a little bump inside Google. So this is really, really important. And one of the ways that you can do all of these things is to schedule them. So I've spoken a little bit before about, the social media tools, and that's how you should think about your content scheduling. You might set up some emails to go out into the future, but you want to be using those content marketing, those social media scheduling tools that I talked about before. This is how you can use those, as well as when you're thinking about, and this is often where content and social come together really, really nicely, is we're thinking about what our customers are interested in. You've got your overarching marketing plans, I want to talk about this month, I want to talk about this month. When you sit down and you batch out some of that content, it might include, I'm going to write a blog post on this. You will find that it is easier for you in the creation part to do it in a session. So rather than, if you don't plan it to happen, it never actually happens. So you've got to think about it and write it down and go with a theme. It'll help your creative juices flow better. Okay, so that's something that all big organizations do. They have a content plan. Their social plan marries in with their overarching content and marketing plans. This is how they make gains in what it is they're trying to do. It's not ad hoc. Okay, so let's wrap up into the last one. Stay with me, everyone. I know this is a lot of information in a session. Okay, so what's in our search elements? Right, so search for me is a two-way street. It's as much about people finding us, so people are attracted and come to us, as us prospecting, us going out there and doing things to find them. So I'm going to share some tools and tactics with you in this session, but you require both. You need to be thinking about, how do I attract people to me via perhaps search engine optimization and other tools? And how do I find people? What are the prospecting things that I can do? So let's just have a look at our graphic. Okay, so there's quite a few things on here that I'm just going to highlight a few things to you. So obviously search, when I talk Google, I am talking across all search engines, but really just get Google right and the others will all slot into place. They're very small in Australia. Bing has a small footprint, and a lot of the other, DuckDuckGo and Yahoo and a few others, very small footprint in Australia. We're very much Google land. So Google, search engine optimization for Google, get that right, you get it right for everywhere. So we want to have things like on-page SEO. You might have set up little goals on your website. You might want to track stuff inside Google Analytics. You also might use a tool that is a search engine, which is Pinterest, which is, if you're videoing things, it's YouTube. If you are talking the gaming industry, politics, health, whatever, Reddit. Like Reddit, Pinterest, YouTube, they are all search engines. They are not social channels per se. Although people talk in there, I see them more as search engines. But you can have ads across those channels: TikTok ads, Pinterest ads, YouTube ads, Facebook, Instagram ads, Google ads for display and search. So there's a whole range of things in relation to bringing people to you and going out and finding people. So what do we need to focus on? Well, first of all, this is the most important thing that I think any small business needs to focus on, is some of these SEO basics, okay? So it's really critical, again, coming back to that thing I spoke about at the beginning. You've got to think like your customers and answer their questions. What do your customers ask online? What are they searching for? How do they phrase it? You need to be thinking like that, because jargon is the enemy of effective search. Often people think people type this in, and I've gone in and done some audits of their site and proven to them that people aren't searching for that, and people are finding them for these things. And then when they go, but what about all this other stuff that we do? Why aren't they finding it there? Why aren't they coming to us searching for, say, I don't know, wealth creation or self-managed super funds? How come they're not finding us for self-managed super funds? And then when we might analyze the site, I say, well, you don't talk about self-managed super funds. You just say superannuation. And yes, it's related, but it's not the same thing if we're going to be specific. And that's the thing. What are they actually asking for? What are the SEO basics that you need to understand? So I've just put 4 key things on here. I'm just going to go through these in a little bit of detail, and then I might flip through some other ones, because I think this is really critical for each and every one of you. I was talking to a prospect the other day, and they wanted me to just give them a little bit of an audit on their website. And one of the things that I highlighted straight away was they had all their information about what they did on their homepage. But then they had other pages of their website, but they didn't have a detailed breakdown that was specifically dedicated to the areas of the services that they provided. Everything was just jammed on the one page. Now, the thing that you have to think about for your website is, don't think about your homepage when it comes to search. We'll come to that later. But if you think about all the other pages of your website, each of them should be about one specific thing, because Google ranks you based around search criteria, and they rank pages. They don't rank websites in the way that you think that they might. They do in an overall sense, but not if they're looking to display a page that best answers a customer's question. So each page of your website should be about a unique thing. And if you have a page that talks about 3 different things, it's hard for Google to rank you well, you know, close to page 1, if they're comparing you to other people that have specific pages for each thing. And what we see a lot of customers do is that they have a page called, first of all, services. Well, nobody looks for services. They're looking for wealth creation strategies. They're looking for outsourcing solutions. They're looking for health. You know, they're looking for specific things. Your services mean something. If I look on your website, I see services, I see products. I understand that when I'm there. But in order for Google to rank you, you need to tell it what's the page actually about. What are the services? And then the thing that's also important is if you have a page that lists, say, 6 different services, and you don't have a page for each of those different 6 services, Google won't rank you as well as someone else who does that. So that's why it's really important to think about your content and being expansive enough so Google can rank you. So you want to have unique pages for each, unique titles for each page, unique page names for each page. You need to have heading styles. H1 should be the page title. You might want to have H2 and H3 for subheadings. You need to bold text around your keywords, and you need to think about your keyword density. If your page is all about chocolate cake, and you only mention chocolate cake once, well, your page isn't necessarily about chocolate cake because you've only mentioned it the once. You might need to think about mentioning it a few more times. That's called keyword density. And it's really important to help Google rank you. So I've spent a bit of time in there on thinking about SEO basics, because it's really important that you understand this next bit. It's not a magic formula. It's not about keywords that you put in some magic spot that makes everything work. It's about having a structure that makes sense for a customer, that matches their search intent. It's about giving your business the best possible foundation to be seen online. And it's a very active part of your online digital strategy. And if you're spending money online, this is likely to be where you spend it, on ads, on getting someone to help you get your SEO right, and then on ads to grow your footprint. So it is a tricky area, but it is something that you can do, because I think nobody knows your business as well as you. And once you understand some of these search basics, you can get each page of your site matching up to the one thing that it's truly about. So what then does big business do here that your business can also start to do, or is probably not doing enough of? It's called retargeting. Big business, or businesses with bigger budgets, are likely to be doing this. It's when you visit a website, you don't buy the thing, or you visit a website, you read the information, and the next thing you know, you're reading some article online and you see an ad for that same company. You're inside Facebook and you see an ad for those shoes that you were looking at. Okay, that is retargeting, where a little bit of code is embedded in the page. If it's across the Facebook ecosystem, it's your Facebook pixel. If it's inside Google Ads, you've set up Google Ads and you've turned on the little remarketing thing with your Google Analytics, so that Google can start within all the privacy realms. People have to obviously say, yes, I will accept you to do that. And it is much more difficult with the Apple devices, but it's still something that's really important, I believe. Because what you want to do is you want to have these little bits of code in your website that you let people know that you have. It enables you to then retarget people that are effectively warmer than cold leads that you might try and reach from an ad. They get to be reminded about the thing that they were just looking at. And even if you're not ready to advertise today, if you get these tools set up, when you go to turn on a remarketing audience, you've actually got someone in the bucket. Because if you only turn it on today, it's only starting to track people from today. It's not all the history of all that traffic, that I think is around, 90, 180 days of site visits that you can put into your bucket if you want to start advertising. That's why it's really important to get these things in place, even if you're not ready to advertise yet. So I've just explained what they are in terms of, following around the internet. You often see, and I often work with clients that if I'm looking to build their brand, I want to give a kickstart to their brand. This will be something that we'll use, particularly the Google Display Network, because we can target people that have shown an interest in their product to help build brand awareness and then start to get traffic. And then we can retarget the people that are truly interested. So this is really, really important to think about, and it's likely to be something that you'll need expert help with. That's not to say you can't do it. There's lots of tools online, but it is something that I go through in my course. But it is definitely the thing that big business does, that small business doesn't do enough of, and you can do. So that's why I've got that there as a little ninja tip for you. Okay. And then on here, I'm just, talking about why it's so important, because we need to be reminded multiple times before we do something. I think the touch points for people to take action is about 9 or 10 different times. It's ridiculous. So you've got to be constantly putting yourself, the effort that you need to do into online stuff is more than you might realize. But that's why it's so important to automate, to plan in advance, to try and get some of these things happening on autopilot, so that visibility aspect of your digital footprint happens by itself. Yes, it's work to set up, but then it can happen in a good way forever and ever and become evergreen. So in summary, the 4 digital elements that I think every single business needs to have are these. You should have a blog on your website. All website tools will have one. You should have one. You should be regularly doing it. On your social channels, you should be engaging with your audiences. You should be aiming to build rapport and endeavoring to strike out conversations, whether they're comments on posts, but more importantly, trying to get people to message you or direct message you, or you starting those conversations. Don't be afraid to try and build engagement. That's important. I want you to automate more of your marketing. This is critical. We are all time poor. Using your email marketing tools. So think about a welcome sequence. Think about a sequence that might happen when they download a something or other, and having a plan for regular communication to your list. And the fourth one is SEO, to think like a customer and have pages on your website that are about just one thing, so that Google knows how to rank you based around whatever that page is. People don't search for services online. They search for whatever your services are. So call your page that, okay? So they're the essential things. The ninja tips are these. Landing pages. Your website should have a landing page that you can funnel traffic awareness to get people to do something. Okay, to sign up to your newsletter, to download your thing, to get your freebie, to get your discount code, to book an appointment, to trial your something or other. Whatever it is, you need a landing page. The next ninja tip is batch your social posts. Then you can schedule weeks of content at a time, but you can also get into the groove that happens when you work creatively like that. Your mind, we get in the zone, we are more efficient, we are more creative, time flows faster, and then you are not going to have an ineffective social presence and campaigns because you've done all this weird ad hoc stuff that just doesn't flow very well. Schedule and recycle your content in the content area. This is really important. If you're going to go to the trouble of creating a great piece of content, then what I want you to do is recycle it again, reuse it, update it, share it again on your social, share it again in your email newsletters. Don't just think, oh, well, I've created it and I've sent it out once, that it never sees the light of day again. It doesn't work like that, and it will save you content creation time in the future. And the final ninja tip, retarget to your website visitors. You need to be prompting people at regular intervals. You don't necessarily need to do this all the time, but you should be thinking about, how can I remind those people that have visited my website? Because if you're tracking your website statistics, you can see how many people come to your website, and you might be looking at a metric that shows you, well, 90% of the people that come to my website are new people, and then only 10% are revisiting people. Why is that? And why aren't I seeing more conversions? Well, maybe it's because we're not putting ourselves in front of them, prompting them. Oh, I didn't finish that thing. Oh yeah, there's that company. What did they do again? Oh yeah, I was reading that interesting thing. Give people a chance to come to know you and to take action. Prompt them again. We often need people tapping us on the shoulder several times. Like my kids say this, they have to tap me on the shoulder and just about send up smoke signals sometimes when I'm reading, for me to pay attention to them. Little do they know that I'm just ignoring them. But this is what you need to do in your business. You need to be getting that visibility thing happening a bit more. Okay. Alrighty, so thank you so much for hanging with me throughout that whole session. I know it was a lot to cover off in an hour, but you have the download that I sent you. I will send you this presentation, and I will send you a link to watch the video again. So you better watch it again and digest it. If you haven't got your guide, I can resend it to you. It was an email from me, so I will resend it when I send through the video link. So don't worry if you don't have it. There's a bunch of things that you can do inside here. You can visit my website if you like and take advantage of a booking with me, a consult, and we can talk about your digital ecosystem, understand what's missing. You can also join my free Facebook group, the Digital Compass, where I actually, we talk about business things, we go through the digital ecosystem, and I share snippets of how-tos and little guides that's actually in my Digital Ascent program. Now, my Digital Ascent program is an 8-week online program that teaches you in depth how to do these things for your business, how to create your own digital strategy, how to set up all these tools that you might be missing. You walk through it with me as your digital Sherpa. So that is something that we can talk about if you'd like to book in an appointment. But I just need you to have a look at that guide and audit what you have. You will be surprised at what you can do. You will then have some clarity around what you should be doing. And if you join my free Facebook group, you will get some confidence to do it yourself. Or if you'd like to invest in an 8-week program, I kick them off the second week of every month from February to November. It's a great way for you to take charge of your digital marketing, and it's a great way for you to have confidence to really leverage your business in the best way possible. So I've got a little bit of time for anybody that would like to